Well, in Connecticut, it's all about the economy. Right now, inflation at 40 years highs. A gallon of milk, $5 a gallon, gas prices. People are really struggling right now. And whether it's, in the suburbs or the cities, you've got people actually making decisions whether to buy food, prescription drugs, or heat their house. And I think there's a lot we can do as a state to help that. I don't think the current governor is doing as much as he could to help. And we're very focused on making it more affordable for people to live in Connecticut.
You kind of took me into my next question there, but what are some of those specific ways that we can make living more affordable for Connecticut residents?
Well, we came out with a 6-point plan about 2 weeks ago about things that would give people immediate relief. We should be lowering the sales tax right now at 6.35% with inflation. It's making goods more and more expensive. There's still a tax on regular gas that we should suspend till the end of the year. Governor Lamont, in a time when gas prices are at the highest in history, he added to the diesel tax, and that impacts consumers because if you tax the truckers and it's more expensive for them, that's going to get passed down to consumers. So not only should we not have raised that tax, we should be suspending it to the end of the year. There's a $450 million unemployment insurance loan. That's absolutely strangling small businesses. We should use some of the $5 billion surplus, close to $5 billion that has in the capital, to give some people some immediate relief. And if I were governor, that's what I'd do right now.
Absolutely. Besides the economy, I know there are some social issues, especially that Governor Lamont is campaigning on.
Sure.
What are your stances on things like reproductive rights
Yeah.
and gun control?
So first of all, the governor, he doesn't want to talk about the economy. It's an election year. He knows he's as responsible for inflation as anyone. Our positions are very, very similar on the social issues. With respect to Roe v. Wade, I think Connecticut law is right where it should be. I support a woman's right to choose. The one place that we are different is I think parents should have the right to know whether their child is considering that type of procedure. If you have a 13-year-old girl up in her bedroom trying to decide whether to go through with something like that, the parent should have a right to know. Governor Lamont doesn't think a parent should have the right to know. He thinks that they shouldn't have any influence. And one of the common themes you hear in Connecticut is we're going to get government out of the way. A parent should be able to raise their child. In Connecticut and across the country, government has gotten in the middle of that. And we're going to get government the heck out of the way and let parents raise their kids how they want to be raised.
So support for parental consent laws and things like
Absolutely. The governor's come out against it. The governor's extreme on this position. He actually supported Richard Blumenthal's bill, Senator Blumenthal, which would have allowed abortion right up to the point of delivery. I think Connecticut law is appropriate. It limits it to the first trimester. Governor Lamont is pretty extreme on the issue. I think my positions are right in line with what the people of Connecticut want.
Absolutely. And any response to the campaign videos and some of those promises Lamont was putting out regarding welcoming businesses into Connecticut with the basis of being pro-abortion here?
I think when a business looks at coming to Connecticut, they're going to look at the taxes, they're going to look at access to skilled labor. I think it's largely a campaign ploy by the governor to try to put it on a social issue. We've got the second highest taxes in the nation. We just dropped 15 points by CNBC in terms of our attractiveness to do business. This governor has made it less competitive to do business in Connecticut over the last 4 years. I'm going to lower the tax rate. I'm going to invest in education and trade skills for kids, and we're going to bring back Connecticut to be a competitive state.
Why do you think it's so important to look attractive to bring business in?
It's all about jobs, particularly in the cities. Young people want to stay in Connecticut. I have 3 daughters. They don't want to leave the state of Connecticut, but in order to keep them here, we need vibrant cities. We need a good career path, just as I had. I grew up in New Haven. I went to the public schools. The state has been terrific to me. And I got the opportunities, and I had a great upbringing, and that's why I'm running for governor, to try to bring that opportunity back to other people. I think Governor Lamont is very out of touch with what's happening in Connecticut right now. He was born, into a very wealthy family. He lived in Greenwich. I don't think he knows what it's like to struggle to make a rent payment. I do. We're going to fix things in Connecticut, and we're going to make it a better place to be.
I know we touched on this a little bit already with some campaign platforms, but if you were to win in November, what would be first on that to-do list for you?
I think number one, increase public safety. The governor passed a police accountability bill last year that has decimated police forces across the state. State troopers are supposed to have over 1,200 officers. They're down to under 900. We're seeing car thefts. We're seeing catalytic converters. Hartford has had more homicides year-to-date this year than the entire year last year. And 2021 was up on the prior year. We have to resource our police departments to keep people safe. Number two is affordability. We already spoke about it. Getting the tax rates down, getting inflation down. And number three is giving parents back the right to raise their kids. You know, kitchen table issues. Let them have those discussions with their kids at the kitchen table. Get education back to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, preparing kids to be adults, preparing them for a career, and supporting them from that perspective.
When it comes to the education issue, would you support any sort of restrictions or introduce anything in Connecticut when it comes to curriculum and the right to know for parents for either sex education or critical race theory?
I think sexual education, you hear about it across the country being taught in kindergarten. Governor Lamont may decide to bring that to Connecticut if he's reelected. I'm against it, right? I don't think a kindergartner who can barely tie their shoes should be talking about complex subjects like that. I think that's a kitchen table issue. It's between a parent and their child. When you go to school, you should be learning how to read, how to write, how to do math. You should be learning some trade skills which will help prepare for a career in this state. And let's get back to the fundamentals and get back to teaching kids what they need to know. And let's leave the parenting to the parents.
Absolutely. And is there anything that you'd like to do in terms of increasing salaries for teachers? I know across the country we've seen people leaving the teaching field and had a real issue with staffing shortages. Right. Do you think that Connecticut could benefit from increasing that wage?
I think so. There's some absolutely terrific teachers out there. I still remember my social studies teacher from high school at North Haven High School. That person had an impact to me for the rest of my life. We have to do everything we can to support education. We have to fund education properly. We may need more funding, but we also have to hold the teachers and the schools accountable for results. And we need to resource them. We need to give them the right curriculum. We need to let the local school boards make the decision, and then we need to hold them accountable and make sure our kids get a terrific education.
What ways would you hold them accountable?
Well, I think right now we're too focused on test scores. I think too many schools are totally geared towards sending kids to college. And college is a terrific thing for a lot of kids, but for many it's not. Many kids don't want to graduate with $300,000 of debt. They could go to one of our great trade schools, which I think we should expand as well. Small and mid-sized business in Connecticut is dying for kids with basic engineering skills, machine tools, and a kid can go to a 2-year program and have multiple job offers coming out of one of these great trade schools, and we need to keep to resource that.
You ran previously for governor against Lamont
Yes.
and lost, so what makes you think now's the time and you're trying again?
People are ready for a change. You know, we've had 40 years of Democratic rule in Connecticut, and when any election comes up, you have to think about, are you better off now than when Governor Lamont came into office? Are less cars being stolen? No. Are less catalytic converters being stolen? No. Do you feel safer on the streets? No. Is it cheaper? Is a gallon of milk cheaper than it was 4 years ago? No. Do you feel like you're more empowered as a parent to raise your kids? No. And the answer to all those questions is no, and quite honestly, he hasn't earned the right to be reelected. We've got some fresh ideas. I'm a Connecticut guy. I grew up in New Haven. We're going to bring back Connecticut to what it used to be.
So you think people are ready for that change now?
Absolutely. When I go across the state, and it's not just Republicans, you want to see an upset person. You see a Democrat mom where the government has gotten between her and her kid, and understandably so. You've got people in the city and the suburbs going to bed at night worried about their security and their safety. And that's going to drive people away from the old agenda. The cities have been under Democratic control for 40 years. They're not getting any better. We've got some fresh ideas and urban agenda, revitalize those. We're going to support police, and we're going to give parents the right back to raise their kids.
As you said, or as I guess we talked about,
Yes.
There's no primary for your race,
Yes.
both you and Lamont running uncontested here, but there are a couple other primaries in the state with Secretary of State, primary
Sure.
both parties there, Senate, there's a Republican primary. So
Right.
even though your name won't be on the ballot on August 9th, do you have any message to voters? Historically, we see low turnout in primaries, higher turnout in November for the general. So do you have any message for voters who
Yeah.
don't really know if it's worth it to vote in the primary?
Well, it's absolutely worth it. We've got terrific candidates on the Republican side. I will tell you, any one of the Senate candidates, in my humble opinion, will do a better job than Senator Blumenthal. He's part of the problem. He's part of the system. He's been up there for decades. I think we need some reform at the Secretary of State level. I think any of the three candidates that are running on the Republican side for Secretary of State would do a better job than Denise Merrill has. It gets back to where we started. Connecticut's ready for change. You can't change the government if you keep sending the same people up to the Capitol. We got to change the people we're sending up there. This is going to be a big year for our party because people are ready for that change.
Right. So you mentioned the Senate. That's been a big conversation. We had the debate this week between those three candidates. Is
Sure.
there anyone that you're personally backing out of the three?
No, I think they're all terrific. They all bring different things to the table, and they'll all do an infinitely better job of protecting Connecticut families, driving the national economy than Richard Blumenthal has done in tandem with President Biden.
Did you watch the debate on Tuesday?
I saw the end of it. I was coming back from an event, so I saw the tail end of it. But any one of them will be better than what we have. Governor Lamont supports President Biden. He was one of his first endorsers. He supported his stimulus packages. There's a real issue with how the Democratic Party has run the state and the country, and I think you're going to see a reaction to that this November.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you, we didn't touch on, that you'd want to add in?
Well, one of the things I've been trying to do is get to people on the front line. We had a meeting this morning, press conference this morning, where I've been in touch with some of the corrections officers at the facility. It's 100 degrees inside. The air conditioning is out. There's dangerous situations with people creating their own weapons, and it's been a horrible environment. And a lot of people in Connecticut, what you hear is our voices are not heard. So as part of this campaign, I'm meeting directly with teachers. I'm meeting directly with corrections officers. I'm meeting directly with the people that are involved. I think there's too big a gap between that front line and what happens up in the Capitol. I think Governor Lamont has no idea how bad it is. When you see his campaign commercials, you think he's talking about another state. Because when I'm out meeting with small business owners or people across the state, they are struggling right now. And I think the governor has the money to deal with it. He's got the authority to deal with it, and he should deal with it now rather than waiting till the next election.
Do you think you'd be able to bridge that gap between Hartford, between the Capitol, and what you said as the front lines?
I think I can do that. I hired a terrific lieutenant governor who's been in the state capitol as a state rep. And I think some of the things we're asking for should not be controversial. I mean, making food cheaper for people is not controversial. Making people safer by bulking up our providers is not controversial. The governor has a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate. He's got a Democratic president, and he's got $5 billion surplus. He should be doing something to make life better for Connecticut residents right now.
Last thing, I know we said at the start, Connecticut's traditionally a blue state.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can go a little bit purple, but
Yeah.
if our state House and Senate races, stay in line, lean a lot more towards blue and a Democrat majority, and you were to be elected governor, do you think you'd face any pushback at the Capitol or at the state House level working on some of those issues with a majority in the opposite party?
I think the Democrats and Republicans agree on a lot of things. I'll use the city as an example. We both want the cities to be successful. My view is we should be creating jobs so that people can earn their way to a sense of independence. In my humble opinion, Democrats have created a sense of dependency. They haven't focused on jobs. They haven't focused on education. So I don't think it's the ultimate goal that's different. I think it's the way to get there. I've spent a career surrounding myself with people that are different than me. I don't want a lot of people who think my way. I want a lot of diversity, and then I'm going to make a decision. And I've been very effective at getting consensus, and I'm pretty comfortable I'll be able to get that done up in Hartford.